Hello everyone, my name's Alison Hinde and I'm delighted to be talking to you today at the Safety Profit Conference. Hope you're having a really great day. I've been a health and safety and environment practitioner for a very long time. It's become clear to me that whilst health and safety and environment are really important, many people see them as bureaucratic or box-ticking exercises. So I've been trying to change these opinions using technology. I'm CEO of a software company. I'm going to be talking to you today about mastering persuasion, smart strategies for technology adoption. So when you have your technology, how do you actually get people to use it? Technology promises many amazing things. Improving your productivity, engaging better with your workforce, improving your safety statistics and reducing accidents, all that leading to better profitability. Businesses are constantly seeking to leverage technology to gain a competitive edge. But these things only happen if it's done right, and there's opportunities for problems. So I'm going to start by looking at implementation. It's really important that you get the right sort of technology, otherwise it's never going to work, of course. So start with strategic planning, where you think very carefully about what are your company's long-term objectives and goals. Then what infrastructure will you need? So the hardware, the software, will you need to integrate with something? Have you got workers that are on site or are they out in the field? And so you're going to have contact with them. Next, look at customization. You can buy technology out of the box, but if you do that, you're going to have to change how you work to fit with how the technology works. Much better is to optimize how you are working, your systems, and then get the software or the technology that will work with that. We then go live. In this stage, we're doing training people, skilling them up so that they know what to do and they can be confident going forward. So all that is in the implementation. You can spend an enormous amount of time and effort and energy to get the implementation perfect, but when it comes down to it, if they don't use it, you lose it. And poor user adoption is one of the most likely causes of failure. So it brings us to a question: what can we do to persuade them? And that's what my presentation is about. I recently read a book. It's called The Influential Mind by Tali Sharot, using neuroscience to make you more persuasive. It sounds quite complicated, but I was really impressed reading through it on how many of these techniques and strategies that we're already using in health and safety. So how my presentation will work is I'm going to go through the different strategies, and for each one I'll tell a story showing it working, and then I'll relate it to how we can use it for better adoption of health and safety and environmental technology. Let's start with incentives, our first strategy. Now, the human brain hasn't changed much over time, so the quote is from a long time ago, 1789, by Jeremy Bentham. He says, "Nature has placed mankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. It is for them alone to point out what we ought to do, as well as to determine what we shall do." So this is very much a carrot and stick approach. The question is, what is going to be more effective? Do we want to move with pleasure? So examples of this might be, you should wear your coat going out, it's cold, you want to go to that party at the weekend, so make sure you stay warm. Or you've just been to the gym, hey, you look great. Or a health and safety one, you need to wear your hard hat because if there is something falls and hits you, you'll be safe and you can go home safely. All those are moving with pleasure. Pleasure is something we move towards. It's a go-to type response, and it works when we want to promote action. On the other side, we have freezing with fear, which for health and safety we do quite a lot. So examples of that might be, if you don't wear your coat, you'll get ill and won't be able to go to the party. Or if you don't go to the gym, you might have ill health. If you don't wear your hard hat and something falls, it could be a really serious accident. So really nasty things. And these promote in us a no-go response. So if something bad happens, we tend to move away from it. It tends to stop action. So in choosing which one you want to do, think, do we want to promote action or do we want to stop action? Our story here is a pre-COVID experiment. It's in the intensive care unit in a hospital. You can imagine there's lots of infections in a hospital, but we find that only 10% of people, medical people, are washing their hands when they're going from one patient to another. Sounds horrible, doesn't it? So lots of statistics given, lots of initiatives to try and get people to wash their hands, posters everywhere, etc. But nothing seems to work. So they try something different. The researchers put a camera and a scoreboard by each sink, an electronic scoreboard. And then every time someone washes their hands, the numbers on the scoreboard go up. So it congratulates you, it tells you how well the current shift is doing, what percentage of workers are currently washing their hands, and what the weekly rate is. And what do you think happens? Amazing results. Now we see that 90% of people are washing their hands. Compliance has soared. Great result. So why do you think this has happened? Well, two reasons come to mind. Gamification. So they have the scoreboard and they have a bit of competition, but they also had the feedback, immediate feedback on, thank you for washing your hands. This is the results. We can do this with health and safety technology as well. A lot of software systems use gamification, and you can have scoreboards where you can have different teams are scoring on, audit results or something like that. And then you get a prize for the top one that quarter or something. It can be really effective so long as it's managed in the right way. So think carefully about what you're going to measure. What do you really want to achieve? I've also seen hazard spotting, and the team that gets the most hazards gets the prize. But do you really want to have a large number of less serious, we've run out of toilet roll, it's the hazard kind of things? You want to be focusing on the important ones. But even better than that, how about going for how many hazards have you resolved? How many have you made safe? And the team that gets the most number of those is the winner. Software can also give feedback. Imagine similar sort of thing where hazard reporting, maybe using a mobile app, you send in your hazard and you get feedback immediately. Thank you. It could be just an automated feedback, but then maybe that's followed by someone, maybe your manager comes back with a personal feedback about what they think of your idea. And then the best feedback probably of all is you see what happens they've taken that idea, they've discussed it, and there's been some sort of outcome. And then you can feel really good about what you've done. So that feedback has really made you feel good about the software and the processes, and really likely to do it again and improve adoption. And that spreads. Second strategy to look at is emotion. So one of the most powerful ways to communicate your message effectively is to share feelings. They can be really contagious. Our mood definitely affects our judgment. And we communicate much better when our brains are in sync emotionally. So for example, I tell a joke, you laugh, I laugh, and then the conversation seems to go much more smoothly. We've synced our emotions, our positive emotions, in our grey matter. One of the best ways to do this is through storytelling. Stories can be really powerful in convincing people, even when rational arguments fail. So we're going to have an example. We're going to look at the master of persuasion. You might love him, you might hate him, but it's Donald Trump. And this is a CNN and CBS recording of the September 2015 Republican primary debate. There's two leading candidates. We've got pediatric neurosurgeon Ben Carson and real estate mogul Donald Trump. So Trump has been making comments about the link between vaccinations and childhood autism. Carson is asked whether Trump should stop doing this. Let's have a look and see what he says.
Studies, and they have not demonstrated that there's any correlation between vaccinations and autism. Vaccines are very important, certain ones, the ones that would prevent death or crippling. There are others, a multitude of vaccines, which probably don't fit in that category, and there should be some discretion.
Autism has become an epidemic. 25 years ago, 35 years ago, you look at the statistics, not even close. I am totally in favor of vaccines, but I want smaller doses over a longer period of time. And you pump, I mean, it looks just like it's meant for a horse, not for a child. 2 years old, 2.5 years old, a child, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic.
Dr. Carson, you just heard his medical tape.
He's an okay doctor.
So, what do you remember? The qualified doctor with his statistics, or the emotional imagery that Trump uses? The syringe meant for a horse, the beautiful, beautiful baby. It works really well, doesn't it? And why? Well, the target audience is parents. They're already stressed about the important role that they play in trying to keep their baby safe. You know, they're making all the decisions, important decisions at this stage. They're very receptive to Trump's message.
Studies, and they have not done.
So I have tried to write a story to do the same sort of thing with health and safety software. It's of course, completely fiction. Can safety software save lives in our factory? Discover the stats transforming our workplace. I tried to make it a bit sort of clickbaity so that it draws you in and you actually want to know what these statistics are. So, meet Mike. He's a supervisor in our plant. He carries the weight of keeping his team safe on his shoulders. Last year, a co-worker, John, was injured in a forklift accident. It was a preventable injury and it weighs really heavily on all of us. Mike's trying to work out what he can do differently to keep people safe, and he thinks perhaps safety software might be the idea. So let's have a look at some statistics. OSHA, which are the regulator in the USA, say that there are 400,000 manufacturing injuries annually. It's a lot. 1 in 4 linked to equipment failures or human error. So that's what happened with John. But there's an upside. Safety technology can reduce workplace accidents by 70%, according to a 2023 National Safety Council study. Wow, looks good, doesn't it? So before software, 40% of hazards went unreported. That's on our site, according to our own internal audits. And really, that's what led to John's accident, because it was a maintenance check that was missed. If only we had done that check, then the accident wouldn't have happened. So can the safety software help? Well, what's happened? We've seen automated inspections that we're getting now mean that we're actually doing the inspections properly. We're not missing those checks, cutting missed checks by 80%. Wow, according to our own audit report. Hazard data reported on an app is going up 65%, again from our own data. And an example of this happening was a faulty conveyor belt found. And we resolved it, we made it safe, and that has perhaps stopped an injury to Lisa, one of our new employees. We've seen our injury rate drop from 10 to 2 per 100 workers, so we're now one of the really top factories scoring for health and safety. Let's finish the story with a call to action. You need to be proactive. You need to be doing those automated inspections. You need to be vigilant and looking out for hazards and near misses, spotting them, reporting them, doing things about them. And that way we can achieve our accident goals there and stay safe, go home safely. These numbers aren't just data, they're really persuasive. Safer days, happier families. You can imagine Mike there thinking, oh, I've done the right thing, I'm keeping people safe. Lisa knows that she's valued because they fixed the conveyor belt for her. She feels good as well. And so we can all work together to prevent accidents and protect each other and go home safely. It works because there's an emotional connection there. We've got Mike and Lisa's stories humanizing it. We've got positive framework because we're looking at empowerment. We're looking at thriving workplace rather than fear. The statistics are very persuasive. We've got a mixture of ones external from people like OSHA, companies like OSHA, which are trusted, they're well reputable, and our own in-house audits. And then we have in-house appeal. We have our workers, our plant, our statistics, making it very relevant for what we're doing, giving it a personal message, actionable for the audience. So that was a way we could try and get emotion to try and motivate people to use the software. Let's look at a third strategy now, which is prior beliefs. What are prior beliefs? Well, we all come with preconceived notions. You might call it emotional baggage. So if you want to introduce something new into the workplace, if people agree with it, they accept the information. However, if they disagree with it, they'll find reasons why that information isn't correct. Their views against usually become stronger rather than changing to agree with what you're doing. So what can you do? Well, rather than saying, this is good and this is bad, let's try by finding something that you agree on. Let's see a story to see this in action. So we're again going to talk about vaccines. This is the MMR vaccine. In 1998, so well before Trump, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a study in The Lancet, a very reputable journal, showing that there was a link between MMR vaccinations and autism. It was later discredited, but there was a huge media storm. And you can see from this graph here, the level of concern that people had. This is a level of people making claims. So USA is quite a litigious country. But you can see in the graph how many people are now, let's say, uneasy, scared about the MMR vaccine, and they've been prompted to see problems and to make claims. I know this really clearly because my children were born in the early 2000s. I remember it was all we could talk about at the time. There was with my husband, with my friends, what are we going to do? Are we going to get the MMR vaccine? Are we going to get individual vaccines? Maybe even no vaccine at all. But you always are feared of the level of measles. Measles, we need a really high level of sort of like 95%, I think, of vaccinations to get that herd immunity. And so as soon as people are stopping getting vaccinations, we're going into dangerous territory. So go to the doctors. You can imagine me going to the doctor with my baby, my precious baby. I'm very worried about it. I don't know if I want to have the vaccination. The doctor is worried about the measles epidemic potentially and wants me to have the vaccination. What argument will the doctor use? Well, perhaps your worries are wrong. Look at all this data to show it is safe. Now, this is definitely a you are wrong and I am right. That is really not a persuasive argument. Instead, try and find something we agree on, because we agree that the vaccination will protect my child from measles. If we focus on that, it's a much more persuasive go and get the vaccination. And it worked. We got the vaccination. Let's think about how we can use that agreement, finding a common ground for our technology implementation. Well, technology can often people are quite scared of it. They worry that they won't be able to use it, that they won't understand it, particularly older people. But we can agree on a few things. Everyone likes using their phone for playing games, for watching Facebook. I mean, my mum is 84. She's definitely not a technology guru, but she loves playing card games on her iPad. Safety apps can have many features in common with this sort of games and Facebook type technology programs. We try to get a user interface that people will understand and be able to use easily. So if you draw attention to the similarities and to the fact that work should become much more enjoyable now using technology rather than it was when you were using lots of different pieces of paper and it was going missing and all the chaos that resulted from that. So finding a common ground helps to improve adoption. The fourth strategy is about agency, a feeling of being in control. The quote this time is from former FBI international hostage negotiator Chris Voss, who says, "It's critical in any negotiation to give the other side a feeling of control," and he should know. Interestingly, it's the sense of control that you need. So it's a perception. It's better actually to guide people towards the ultimate solution while at the same time maintaining their sense of control rather than to give orders. So basically, don't give orders, give options. Don't tell, ask and guide. The story for this, well, no one likes paying taxes. Avoidance is high. Imagine you are a government official and you've been told to look for a way to try and encourage people to pay their taxes. You might go down the normal routes of raising the fines, doing more audits, highlighting for people what happens to the money. These are useful, but still people avoid paying taxes. So what else could we do? Well, researchers run an experiment in a lab. So they're actually students they invite in and they do some tests and things and they get paid $10 for doing this. But there is a lab tax. You have to put $3 in the envelope by the door as you leave. Students really unhappy about this lab tax, and they find that only half the students, 50%, pay the right amount. The others paid less or nothing at all. So we run the experiment again, different set of students. This time, the lab manager comes in and he says, "We're going to charge you $3 lab tax, but where do you think that money should be spent? For example, do you think we could get some treats, some goodies, some nice things to eat, and the next people that come in to do these experiments, we'll share those with them?" So they get to discuss and they get to choose. Now, when they leave, 70% of people pay the money into the envelope. That's an improvement of 20%. That's quite a massive amount from just having that ability to control where that money is going. Imagine what that could do at a national level. How can we use this with our health and safety technology? Well, we can certainly consult, especially at the implementation phase. And it works really well to involve champions. So you're training up experts in how it will work. These are going to help you with making sure that the customizing the solution to how you want to work. And it's great to involve these champions. The people who do the job are always the ones that know most about how the job works. You know, they know what works, what doesn't, what corners they have to cut to get the job done. And they can bring that information into your customization. And then when it's being used, they can share that information with people to explain why things have been done in a certain way. You can also afterwards have a retrospective. So in this, we're asking people, what should we continue? What should we start? What should we stop? What goes well? What could we change? And then people still are feeling that they have some sort of control over what's happening. And that control should help persuade them to adopt the technology. The fifth strategy here is about other people. We are social creatures. We love to think that we're independent and aren't affected by the opinions of others, but we are. We are strongly influenced by what others do and think. So, a story from my past. I remember this so clearly. There was a warehouse, and we had a fast roll door that the forklift trucks go in and out of, and next to it was a pedestrian access. And we tried very hard to persuade people they should be using the pedestrian door. Now, everything was going sort of okay until the managing director came down, and he walked straight through the open fast roll door. And at that stage, it was just everything fell apart. It's difficult to get past that. Leading by example is really important. So the message here is, please lead well. Be seen to be using the technology yourselves visibly, so that people can see that's the required way forwards. Also, we have peer pressure. You're probably aware that when one person does something, it's very likely that spreads and that more people are likely to follow. I have a story here about Adelie penguins. So the penguins are all huddled on the rocks. They're hungry. They're hungry for krill and fish. They're looking into the water. But in the water, there are leopard seals. And leopard seals are hungry for penguin. So what does the penguin do? They sit, they watch some more. And then one of them either gets pushed or jumps in. The others crane their necks to see what's happened. Is that penguin munching away on that yummy fish? Or is there a bloodbath there and we should run away quickly? So they look to see what happens before they make their decision. And this can be very true with implementing safety technology as well. We talked about those champions before. If you have people there who understand how it works and they're getting really good results, then other people will look at those results and also want to do the same thing. And that can be really powerful in getting adoption forward. The sixth and final strategy I have here is state of mind, psychological safety. So psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. It works, you've probably seen on a sort of trying to encourage people to report accidents and near misses and hazards. But what happens when they do that? If someone gets blamed, they do, or their colleague does, then they're really unlikely to do that again, to report next time. It doesn't encourage reporting. It's known as a blame culture, and we really want to avoid that. What we want instead is transparency and trust. So what can you do to generate this transparency and trust? Think very carefully that maybe that near miss that we were talking about before, what caused it? So if you're going to blame the individual that had the near miss, then, normally, people don't come to work wanting to have an accident. It's likely you haven't got to the bottom, to the root cause of that. There was a reason why he did what he did. So you can look further, you can go deeper into it. Why did he do that? And look for the root cause and then address the root cause. It's more likely to be something wrong with the machinery or the system that you're working with, the procedures that we can change. So if you address those, you're much more likely to stop that sort of accident, near miss happening again. But B, you will build transparency and trust with your workforce, and they're more likely to think positively about your incident reporting system and adopt the technology that you have there. So we've looked at 6 techniques that you can use to persuade people that adopting the technology is a good idea. Firstly, incentives, emotion, prior beliefs, a feeling of being in control, other people around them and peer pressure, and then state of mind. All really important if you want good adoption and you want to get those benefits that we talked about right at the beginning, where we talked about better profitability was the end one, given this is the Safety Profit Conference. So we've been looking at different techniques for mastering persuasion. We looked at 6 smart strategies to encourage people to adopt technology. Thank you very much for listening, and I'd love to hear your questions.